brothers and sisters, and my sorors. Please have a seat. Oh, it's good to see so many friends. I love you back. Brother, we are not going back. We are not going back. Bay Area, 106.1 KMEL. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. Let's just get through the next 64 days. How about that?
Do you know what the most evil daytime TV show is? It's The View. And they showed us that again today after attacking Janet Jackson for her comments about Kamala Harris. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't see this coming, and I think it's really entertaining, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this video. So we're going to react to everything that happened up to this point, including their ridiculous take on Janet Jackson. But let's start at the very beginning. So the backstory is this. Janet Jackson sat down for an interview with The Guardian, and they talked about everything that's happened over her life. Of course, Michael Jackson. And eventually it was going to get to politics, right? Because that's where we are today as a country. Politics is almost in every single conversation today. So of course, let's at least understand Janet Jackson from a political point of view. That's what makes this story so interesting about what happened. Let me read it to you. It says, we move on to talk about the state of the nation. Jackson brought politics directly to pop consciousness with Rhythm Nation, which was an album where she addressed racism, poverty, and inequality, all issues just as urgent today as they were 35 years ago, and has used her profile to support Black Lives Matter, to bring awareness to police brutality. Does she feel despondent about how slow change is in coming, or is she hopeful about the future? So before we get to her answer, this is who she's been politically, right? So you wouldn't expect to hear what she had to say. Let's go ahead and check that out. After all, I say America could be on the verge of voting in its first black female president, Kamala Harris. So then Janet Jackson responds and says, well, you know that what they supposedly said, she's not black. That's what I heard, that she's Indian. And then the person who's interviewing her says, well, she's both. And then she responds back and says her father's white. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered her father was white. And then they go on to say, I'm floored at this point. It's well known that Harris' father is a Jamaican economist, a Stanford professor who split from her Indian mother when she was 5. And before I go any further, let me read to you the way they wrote the article and how the mainstream media continues to gaslight black people who question Kamala Harris's racial identity. I understand if you're going to question Donald Trump when he does it, but how could you actually question black people? I find that irony to be funny. But anyways, this is what he said. The people who are most vocal in questioning the facts, which are black people, by the way, of Harris's identity tend to be hardcore QAnon adjacent, Trump-loving conspiracy theorists. Now that right there is intellectually lazy, right? They don't even care to be objective. I don't think Jackson falls into that camp, but I do wonder what the algorithms are serving her. And then I start again. Harris has dual heritage, I say, and given this moment, does Jackson think America is ready for it if we agree she's black or, okay, a woman of color? Then Janet Jackson responds by saying, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to answer that because I really truthfully don't know. I think either way it goes, it's going to be mayhem. So that's the end of what Janet Jackson had to say about Kamala Harris. But anyways, the bottom line that I see in all of this is that if you were truly a black person, no one would ever question. It's like Barack Obama. We all know he's black. Okay. It's obvious. And we all know Michelle Obama is black. We know that Condoleezza Rice is black. There's no questioning that. But for some reason, Kamala Harris gets questioned. Why is that? Because she's probably not black. That's the thing about the black community is when you have black people coming out and saying it, then there might be something there. Does that mean it should be the number one topic of conversation in this election? No, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But the point that does matter is if you do go out there and you say that you are black and you do want to help black people, but there's some things that you're not answering about it, or we see that you like to switch up your accent when speaking to black people, or when we read the headlines when you ran as a senator, when you ran as attorney general, every big promotion besides vice president, you were claiming to be American Indian. Never once was there an article that said African-American woman attorney general. You can't find it. Now, if you do find it, more than likely what's happened is they already scrubbed the internet to update the titles, because that did happen earlier when she was announced as the nominee. So I digress. The bottom line from all of this, guys, before we get to The View and how crazy they are, is that this is an issue for her because it speaks to how fake she is. You know, if you were someone that was like, I'm black and I'm Indian and I'm proud, then I would expect that you would speak on those issues. You would speak about American Indian issues. You would speak about African American issues. She doesn't do that. And to show you how out of touch she really is, if she truly claims to be black, right, and down with the movement, hear how she responded to someone who was asking her about reparations.
On the issue of what we need to do going forward, look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history, in spite of the fact that some people would try and erase history and try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history, in terms of the generational impact of slavery, the generational impact of redlining, of Jim Crow law. I could go on and on and on. These are facts that have had impact. And we need to speak truth about it. And we need to speak truth about it in a way that is about deriving solutions. And frankly, I think that we, and part of that is studying it to figure out exactly what we need to do. But part of what we can do right now is, for example, what I'm talking about in terms of building an opportunity economy, which is addressing explicitly the obstacles that historically and currently exist and dealing with them. Student loan debt, medical debt, bias in home appraisals. What we need to do in terms of dealing with an issue that I have championed for years, black maternal mortality, which is the fact that black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than other women. And we know that the reasons for that include disparities that pre-exist her pregnancy, including disparities that exist in the system during her pregnancy. So all of those things must be addressed.
But do you have a position on whether that should happen, this commission should happen through executive order or via Congress?
I think Congress ultimately will have the ability to do this work. I'm not discounting the importance of any executive action, but ultimately Congress.
This is her answering the question about reparations. She said that she'll just create a commission to conduct studies about it. But she did not verbatim say, I'm going to make sure that we get reparations for black people. I'm showing this because she's highly inconsistent. She's a flip-flopper. She's not going to take a stand on that particular issue. Do you really think Congress is going to pass something like that? They're not going to entertain that whatsoever. I think her problem is she's stuck somewhere in the middle, and she picks and chooses the side based on what's favorable to her or what's going to help her get to where she wants to go. When it's fitting for her to claim the reparations conversation, she will do it. When it isn't favorable, she won't do it. Watch what she said to Al Sharpton when he asked her about reparations.
But in the area of reparations for descendants of Africans enslaved, if you elected president, would you sign that bill if it came across your desk?
When I am elected president, I will sign that bill.
Look at his face. He's like, man, you don't have to break out your crazy laugh on me. But in all seriousness, guys, it was fitting for her to do it there because this event was all about African Americans. Okay. I mean, that's what the whole event was about. And so it was in her best interest to say, oh, yeah, of course. But then when she goes to the NABJ and she knows the whole world is watching, she doesn't give a clear answer. That's what I'm saying. Her problem is that she's a flip-flopper. And so when Janet Jackson says what she said, it makes sense why she's confused too, because Kamala Harris is confused.
Superstar Janet Jackson just did a wide-ranging interview with British newspaper The Guardian, but most of the focus is on when she was asked her thoughts on VP Kamala Harris possibly become the first black female president. She said, she answered by saying that she had heard that Harris's father was white, which we all know is false. And a staffer claims that he was fired for issuing an apology in her name and that her team certified he wasn't authorized to speak on her behalf. Now, Jackson has not responded to requests for comment, but no matter how you feel about celebs speaking out politically, you know, is it okay for somebody to say, you know, I mean, you know, I don't know, I made a mistake?
Let me stop right here. See, Whoopi is walking a fine line. Okay? She's walking a fine line because Janet Jackson is black and she's contributed a lot to the black community. And by all accounts, she's a huge figure in black history. So she herself isn't going to come out and say anything truly inflammatory against her. She's just going to kind of walk that fine line. And did you hear how she said Kamala? She didn't even pronounce her name correctly, but hey, that's a whole nother thing.
Well, she hasn't said that she made a mistake. We don't know what she said because it's been one thing and another. Look, I think Janet Jackson, like every other American, whether you're a celebrity or not, has a right to endorse, support, or not support whomever they want. So she's got every right to not like Kamala Harris if she doesn't want to.
But that's not what she said.
What she doesn't know, what she did was spread misinformation. And I think it's very irresponsible when you have a platform the way Janet Jackson does to use that platform carelessly to spread misinformation based on a racist allegation by Donald Trump, right? It was Donald Trump who tried to say Kamala Harris just turned black.
This is sorry, Sunny. This is the number one most severe warning in the short term we have globally. Misinformation and disinformation. The World Economic Forum said this is our greatest risk in the next few years, and it's not just this country, it's everywhere. And a few reasons. You mentioned that, you know, you've got the algorithm, but you also have internal people like, you know, Donald Trump, who ironically created or coined the term fake news, willingly and on the daily, it seems, perpetuating false stories on purpose. But then you also have foreign adversaries. We recently learned of Russia paying millions of dollars to content creators to keep them doing this. So the big message here is going back to like journalism 101 or just education 101, which is you never single source a story. When you're looking anywhere in journalism, we're always taught you have to back it up. In media, for as much flack as media gets for being leaning, we can get fired or in trouble for not being able to source where we got our story. But the other part of this story that bothers me is the whole identity issue. The fastest growing group in this country is multiracial individuals, not multiracial individuals. So asking people, what are you? My biracial friends always struggled with they weren't white enough or they weren't black enough, and they were always left in the middle. The middle is where the world is headed. And so we need to be more open about people's identities and what they identify as and have some grace.
What is the difference between misinformation and disinformation? If you know the answer to that, can you please put it in the comment section? I've heard them say that 1,000 times and it just doesn't click for me. Okay. Now, my interpretation of when they say that is information that they don't agree with, because how many times have we seen where they said the Hunter Biden laptop is misinformation, disinformation, and it was certified by 51 intelligence specialists and in our agencies, and it was from Russia, only to now fast forward 4 years later where Hunter Biden got convicted, and the one piece of evidence they used to convict him was his laptop. So is that misinformation and disinformation? I'm confused on that. And then she has the audacity to bring up journalism. Right. Like, you guys are experts, right? You guys are activists. That's where we're at today. Can we just have an honest conversation here? Okay, ladies, like, let's really be honest here. CNN, ABC, NBC, they're in the activism business. You know why? Because it makes money. Journalism does not make money for people anymore. They have sold truth out for money. They make money running propaganda campaigns against Donald Trump. They would not make the money they're making if there was no Trump. They would have nobody to demonize as much as him because he gets ratings. Can we just be honest about it already? And the final thing is, Donald Trump is not the person who brought up her racial identity. It was Rachel Scott who brought up her racial identity. She's the one that asked him the question about whether or not he thinks she is black. He didn't start the conversation off that way, but it's funny how they misinform, right, us about what actually happened and those series of events. He responded to a question. And in the end of the day, you know what he said? I don't care what she is. And then ABC during the debate brought it up again. So who's bringing it up more, Donald Trump or the corporate media? The corporate media is making that point live on, not Donald Trump. He doesn't care about it.
Well, I do think you get to identify yourself in being one of the multiracial people here at the table. I will say this. I would handle this the way Kamala Harris has, and that is to give it no air. I think Kamala is breaking barriers just by being in the room, regardless of whether Janet Jackson thinks she's black or white or Indian. The very fact that she is in the room deconstructs, in my view, the alleged societal norms that we've seen in the nearly 250 years of this country of what a presidential candidate looks like.
Now, you know what, Sonny? I agree with you. Why don't you guys do that with everything else? You know, why didn't you guys do that the first time that Rachel Scott tried to do a gotcha question with Trump? You know, why don't you guys ever question Rachel Scott and say, hey, why'd she ask Donald Trump that question? Isn't that a big distraction? And the bottom line is, if we're going to have an honest conversation, the only reason why this is a talking point is because Rachel Scott initiated it. If she had never asked that question, Donald Trump would have never said anything. If I was on a stage in front of millions of black people and they asked me the same question about Kamala Harris, my initial answer would be this. Just the fact that you have to ask that question is a problem. That's number one when it comes to Kamala Harris. Because you know what that means? There's confusion about her image. That's not my fault. That's her fault. That's number one. Now, number two is this speaks to a larger issue in America. Why are we the only country that labels people the way that we do? If I got on a plane right now and I went to China, you know what they're going to call me? Not black, not African American, not Negro. They're going to call me what? That is an American. If I get on a plane and I fly over to Germany, you know what they're going to call me? An American. If I go to Brazil, what are they going to call me? American. Right? All other countries seem to follow that type of labeling when it comes to their citizens. We're all Americans at the end of the day. Yellow, pink, blue, yellow, white. What matters is that we're an American citizen and we live in the greatest country. And of course, if someone came from Germany, we would call them what? German. And if you guys haven't noticed, a lot of black actors and black actresses that you see on TV or on TV shows, you know where they're from? Not America. They're from the UK. And in the UK, they're not called black. So I think that is a problem in America is we put too many labels on ourselves, which creates more divisiveness. And it's just, I think, unnecessary. And it makes groups feel either less than or more than or whatever, but it's not contributing to a net positive for our culture as a whole in America. So that's my opinion. What do you guys think about The View? What do you guys think about this crazy story and how they tried to attack Janet Jackson after the fact? Why do they continue to give this so much energy? I have no idea. Listen, Kamala Harris has not done herself any favors either. She flip-flops on reparations. She flip-flops on policies for the black community. At least Barack Obama had a program and he did campaign about it. But for some reason, Kamala Harris has a hard time doing that. And you know why that is? It's because she's not real. So what is your thoughts about all this? Leave your answers in the comments section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.